Hello, welcome to another Untangled with me, Stuart from the Wool Patch.
And me, Jimmy, from Jimmy Does Knitting.
Your knitting and crochet, sometimes crochet, question and answer show. We're back for another episode. I'm still sweating hot here in the UK, and in my vest tops, I've got a bit of a glow going on. Jimmy, you said it was cold over there. What's it like?
I think it's fine. I also think I have a bit of a fever, so a nice warm jumper is exactly what I need right now.
Bless you for soldiering through with some very important knitting questions. I think, they are all knitting. I've had a look. Okay, let's go for it. Jenny, I'm often asked what a beginner knitter should tackle as a first project once they want to progress to making garments. What would you recommend? Oh, well, I think we were talking about this last episode, weren't we?
I think we're on the same page if that's what you say. I would say the easiest garment to do for a first sweater is top-down raglan, just stockinette. I think if you like a little bit of texture, you like a little bit of interest, then go for it. But top-down raglan would probably be my suggestion. What about you?
Absolutely. And I know everyone does it, and I know it's so prevalent that it annoys people, but it might even be the ranunculus top down, because there are so many variations. My friend who's got a yarn shop down the road from me, he's just he knits, but he's never done a top down. And he thought, you know what, I'm going to go for the ranunculus. And he did it. He did it on 6mm needles. And it took 2 balls of commercial yarn. And that commercial yarn was about £8. So he got a ranunculus for 16 because it was obviously for the lady. It wasn't for him. It was for his wife. And they like it. You could do the ranunculus quite cropped, where you can have some sort of blouse underneath and very cropped sleeves. And it looked phenomenal on her. But it took so little wool because it was on these beautiful big pins of 6mm. It has a very lacy yoke in places. And boom, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. You've got a top down one done. Now, they do have some yarn overs and lacy bits. So that may be a bit more of a challenge. But absolutely, top down, top raglan to go for. I'm trying to think can you remember what is your first top down that you ever knitted? Can you remember?
Top down was the Ott sweater by Jared Flood, but without the color work. It fits amazing. The yarn I used is awful. I hate it. And it looks terrible, but I wear it all the time and I love it.
I do like his work, yeah.
So that's really good. There was one in Lina that they had, everybody was obsessed with a couple years ago because you used a strand of fingering weight and a strand of mohair on 5mm needles. What was that? I forget it, but it was super popular. Everybody knit one. I almost knit one, but I didn't. That's also a really good recommendation. Or Tin Can Knits has the Felix, I think. Which is, Tin Can Knits does a really good job of explaining everything and sizing everything. So I think also, in addition to being a top-down raglan, depending on how confident you feel, maybe go for somebody who you know is going to have a little bit more hand-holdy instructions than not. Because that does make a difference if you're insecure.
I often say to some of my customers, when going to a shawl or something with elaborate stitches, I just say, do a Stephen West. You know there are going to be tutorials galore. And I know that puts a lot of pressure on the modern knitter designer, that sometimes then knitters expect those tutorials. But you know they're there with him, and they are just great. You can just stop, watch, rewind, pause, and go for it. So Jenny, I think that's what to do, and definitely top down, because I think once you've done top down, you're never going to go flat ever again, really, are you?
No, flat's amazing.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, right. What have we got next? Question 2. Jane, from the foothills of the Adirondacks. I'm getting better at saying that too. The only way I'm sure I kit the correct yarn for a pattern is to buy a kit, if not lucky enough to find the yarn needed. Could you give tips and insights how to choose yarns that will work when you can't find a given yarn? I know when I buy a full weight, various yarns differ so much. I have questioned how some of these yarns were designated that weight. Life would be easier if you could easily find all the yarns you need, lol. Oh, Jane, we feel your pain there. I feel that nearly every day, and many of my customers feel it every day. So it is not you, it happens everywhere. Wouldn't you say, Jimmy? It's difficult, isn't it?
I don't know if I really ever use the recommended yarn for a pattern, unless I'm like literally creating the pattern with the yarn that I have. I mean, I think just usually it is something different, and that's part of knitting.
Yeah, it's Jane. It's just something that you get better at. You get to know certain yarns and certain brands. So when you say there, I know when I buy a full weight, various yarns differ so much. Absolutely, because one company's 4-ply is going to be another company's double knit, or and you could use a thin double knit from that company, but you could also get away with a thick 4-ply from another company. So you just learn about yarns. You learn which ones you like and then which ones to use over and over again. Sometimes customers will come in and see a lovely yarn in my shop and they'll go, oh, lovely. Have you got any patterns with that? And I'm like, oh, I knew they were going to ask that. Because not always, the companies don't always produce patterns for said yarn. And I'm like, well, it's just a standard Aran. You just choose an Aran pattern. But some customers aren't very good at that, of going sort of off-piste. If they see a lovely yarn, they'll want the pattern given there and then. And I struggle with that in my shop. Though some yarn commercial companies do very good patterns, and then sometimes they don't. So I'm like, well, I won't buy the book that goes with the yarn because the patterns are hideous. So I then try and find other patterns and then get that knitted up in the lovely said yarn. So it is difficult. There are so many different options. I suppose it gets easier the more you knit and the more yarns you come across. Some people just have set brands. And they'll only use, I know that brand, I'm just going to use that brand. Like Drops, for example. Very affordable. You know Drops Nepal is a lovely Aran weight. You know Drops Charisma is a lovely double knit. And they are classic weights, so they will always work. So I think you've just, maybe, Jane, got to get your notebook, start building up, pages 4-ply, pages double knit, and start putting the brands down that really work in that category. And then, or might make notes, or this was a bit of a thick double knit, maybe don't use again. It's one of those question answers, I'm afraid. Wouldn't you say, Jimmy?
I think it's a bit of learning your way around it and seeing what happens. Even if you use the recommended yarn, your gauge might be so different than the designer's that it might not be a fit. There are a couple of suggestions I have. One, yarnsub.com is a really amazing resource that you could put in the yarn and it will tell you, it ranks, like 88% match, 95% match, that sort of thing. And it will tell you the characteristics of the yarn. So if you put in what you need, it will give you back some other, designs or variations or something like that. So I think that is a great resource for that. I would also urge you to pick something with a similar yarn make and yarn spin. So like if it's a woolen spun, get a woolen spun yarn. If it's a DK weight, you'll probably need a DK weight yarn. And then, if it's, 100% silk, then that's going to be like a different way that it interacts. Or, just try to match it kind of, by yarn characteristics, and that will also help. Depending on how much, if it's a garment, if it needs to fit. If it's not, then just buy what you like. I would only say that don't mix like washable and non-washable. Like keep it so the yarn has the same washing instructions. But aside from that, if it's not a garment, just get what you like.
Absolutely. And try and talk. Like Jane, you've come to us. I know you say their life would be easier for it could easily. Absolutely. And that happens every day when customers come into my shop. And use your local yarn shop if you have one. I know you like to think that I'm your local yarn shop, Jane, but I'm on the other side of the pond. But Jane has placed several orders and I've sent them across. But if you did have a local yarn shop, it would be going in and chatting to the owner, because they will know, like I do. I know that company's double knit is actually a thick double knit. And I can then advise, maybe not, or try this yarn. This is a really bog standard double knit and knits up to the classic gauge and will suit any double knit pattern. Though, Jane, there's nothing wrong with that whole kit thing. Many yarn shops now, to try and sell the yarn better, make kits, because I know as a shopkeeper, when someone comes in and sees a beautiful jumper on the mannequin, and then they go, I want to knit that. And then they see kit number 1 in browns and kit number 2 in greens and kit number 3 in pinks. They just pick the kit up that's got the pattern in and go. It's a big process to do that, and I struggle with that in my shop because it takes a lot of planning, a lot of faith in your colours, because obviously you're then putting inventory into these kits, and I'm rubbish at kits. But there are some yarn shops who are brilliant at kits. I look at the Les Garçons boys, and that's pretty much what they push all the time, because you get Vincent's colours with Max's patterns, and they come up with beautiful colourways, and then they kit them up, and then you just go, yep, I love that colour and I love that pattern. Boom, kit, add to basket, $600 later. And if you put effort into that, it does work. So maybe just find those shops, Jane, that do beautiful kits. They are out there. But it's a hard one. Most of my customers, Jane, will always say that. They'll go, oh God, it's so hard. But we're here to help. We're here to help as much as we can, or your local yarn shop. Good question, though, because it's something that comes up all the time. Now, our last question, it's from Bertus. And like he asked you on the last podcast about how did you learn, Bertus, good old Bertus from New York, says to me, Stuart, what made you get into dyeing yarn? Why only shades of blue? And what would you recommend for anyone getting into dyeing yarn? Okay, so the quick answer to that, of what made you get into dyeing yarn, was my yarn shop is in a wool town, Long Melford, and 5 miles down the road is another wool town called Lavenham. And I'd only been in my shop for about 2, or not even that, might even have been a year, when tourists were coming in and going, have you got any Lavenham Blue? They were mostly Americans as well. So they were going, hey, you got any Lavenham Blue? As Bertus would speak, I'm sure. And I was going, well, I don't actually know what Lavenham Blue is. And the tourists were explaining that they'd just come from Lavenham, and there was this history that in the 16th century made Lavenham, this tiny little village, one of the richest places in the UK in the 16th century. I think it was something silly like the 14th most richest place, because the wool merchant was making so much money from dyeing the fleece in woad, which is a form of indigo, so blue. The whole village was where this term cottage industry comes from. So the village was dyeing it, carding it, spinning it, weaving it into beautiful broadcloth. And they dyed it first. So they dyed the fleece. They literally shoved the fleece in the vat. And then the process of spinning and weaving sort of blends it all out. And they came out with this beautiful blue fabric that then got exported all around the world. It was the only way, Jimmy, you could get blue fabric, was from this indigo that existed in Europe called woad. Japanese indigo, which is another form of indigo, hadn't been imported yet. And because you needed so much woad to get a beautiful blue, and especially dark blue, it then cost the earth. So Mr. Wool Merchant of Lavenham, he was rubbing his hands in the 16th century. So I found out about this Bertus, this history on my doorstep, and I'm like, what are the chances of that? I've just left teaching to open a business of a yarn shop, and then I find out that the village down the road from me has this wonderful history of dyeing blue. So I thought, well, this is too good a business opportunity to not use, especially when I've got customers, tourists coming into my shop saying, have I got Lavenham Blue? Because there was no other yarn shop in Lavenham, but people were saying, go to the wool patch in Long Melford. And so I learned it. I thought, I've got to learn how to do this beautiful, amazing tradition of the 16th century. So as Jimmy said last podcast about his learning of trial and error and reading, I did a lot of reading, but the most part came from trial and error. So it's all about this vat and getting the balance right, the pH right, and this chemical, which in the olden days, in the 16th century, they didn't have the chemical. They used wee. They used urine. So the place stunk. Whereas now we've got a chemical, Berta. So don't worry. If you buy Lavenham Blue, it's not dipped in my wee. And I learned it from there, and I had many trial and errors, some of which are documented on my YouTube channel. If you search woad, you'll see me doing fresh leaf extraction, where I'm growing the woad in my garden, picking the leaves. The leaves are green. How would you know there's blue in there? I'll never know. And trying to get the blue out. My first attempt, I got no blue at all. It went from white to very, very pale blue. But then you do it again, you have another go, try something different, and then I got a beautiful blue. And then since then, Bertus, I actually can't really keep up with demand. So much so, my next 5 years of my lease, which runs out in 2026, I'm looking to perhaps have more a workshop studio rather than a commercial yarn, because I'm at the shop all day. I can't do any dyeing in my shop. People come in asking for Lavenham Blue and I've got nothing on my shelf. So I can only dye when I'm at home on Mondays and Tuesdays, which really isn't efficient. So my idea is to have a different shop with sinks in, workshop space. I could be dyeing, the tourists could come in and watch me dye, and I'm dipping my Lavenham Blue and they can take it. That's the idea. So there you go. That's why it's only blue, Bertus, because it's Lavenham Blue, which actually, Jimmy, is really nice, because you know indie dyers, when they use acid dyes, they have every colour under the sun, don't they? You look at, you walk into Stephen and Penelope in Amsterdam, and there is colours everywhere, and there are indie dyers, all these beautiful variegateds. I couldn't do that, because it's almost too much choice. I wouldn't know what colour to do next. I'm like, oh. Whereas now I just do blue. I just do blue. I do light blue down to dark blue. Brilliant. So it works.
I think it helps a lot, yeah.
And what else did he say? What would you recommend for anyone getting into dyeing yarn? Do it. If you want to have a play, do it. I would recommend certainly choosing a colour. Don't go out buying, the whole spectrum of acid dyes, because it's just too overwhelming. So if you want to get into yarn dyeing, just go, okay, I'm going to do acid dyes and just buy a selection of blues or something, and then play around with it. And then if you like it, then experiment, or go down the natural route. You might want to do onion skins or flowers that are natural as in fugitive, yes, where it's stuck. Some flowers, if you dye using their petals, the colour will just run out within the next wash, or or it won't be light fast, so it will fade within a couple of weeks. But if you do plants like I do with indigo, or you could do yellow, which is marigold flowers, or weld. And then you could do greens by mixing to reds, which is madder. So you could do that. But I would do one route or the other, what perhaps you believe in. And then also perhaps have a lot of saved up in your bank, because you're going to have to buy lots of equipment, lots of containers, and be near a sink and everything. But there we are. So that's why blue, and that's why dyeing yarn, purely from a business point of view. That's a fluke though, don't you think, Jimmy? You set up a yarn shop and then you find out this amazing wool tradition 5 minutes down the road.
I think it's really nice, especially because you use local sheep and you have your own spin with it and everything. It's not like you're getting the same sock yarn that everybody else dyes their hand dyes on. It's a really special product.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think people like that extra sort of uniqueness. So therefore they like investing in that, because they know I found a fleece from 10 minutes down the road at a farm. I've sent that fleece off to be spun. It's come back and then I dye it. So there's that full traceability. And I think, yes, it does mean a higher price, because sadly smaller batches that you send to the mill, they ask for, it's the way of the world, isn't it? You send a mill, 50,000 kilograms of fleece, they're going to do a special offer for you and you get it really cheap. But I think people don't care about the price when it comes to local and something special, because it does then become a unique yarn. Speaking of which, my Lavenham Blue is nearly all sold out for this year already, the 2025 collection, Jimmy.
How?
Brilliant.
Like, you've been dyeing this for like 12 months. We've been talking and you've just been like dyeing this whole time.
It's phenomenal. And what I will say, I know this podcast goes out everywhere, but the Americans, I can't thank you enough for investing in my yarn. I am sending at least 70 hanks off to people in America. And some Americans have bought 4 or 5 hanks at a time. It's unbelievable. More so than the Brits here. It's amazing.
It's crazy. I mean, good for you. Capitalize on it. It's a great idea.
So there we are, Bertus. Lovely question. Hope that was nice to listen to. And if you want more about the Woad, you just got to go to my YouTube channel and type it in, and it'll crop up, I'm sure, many a time. Well, there we are, Jimmy. Look at that. 24 minutes past. That's another episode in the can. I've got the link in the description below if you want to send us a knitting or a crochet question. Please do so. You've got Jimmy there with all of experience as a knitwear designer and knitter, and me with my shop of 9 years coming up to 10 this September of yarns and knitting. So we've got a lot of experience between us, haven't we, Jimmy?
We do indeed.
And love having you listen wherever you are, or even watching on YouTube. So there we are. That's another episode done, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.